The overconsumption of alcohol is gaining large popularity and social acceptance across universities in Canada. This rapid increase in binge drinking being socially acceptable among students may be due to there being a 71% increase in alcohol exposure from 2001 to 2009. As well, popular films such as The Hangover suggest that binge drinking is not only acceptable but is also comedic, and as peers may banter about who may have passed out or blacked out, they are not providing true support or aid to the individual who may be at a huge risk for alcohol poisoning and a variety of other problems. So there are many reasons as to why university students choose to drink. The consumption of alcohol has had a long-standing reputation for enhancing social gatherings. In a summary report by the Canadian Centre on Substance Abuse, CCSA, the most common reasons for university students to drink are 66% to be social and 59% to celebrate. In addition, it was found that the top reasons for students to get drunk were 74% to celebrate, 46% to bond with friends, and 27% was to relieve stress or anxiety. It was found that students with social phobia were 1.7 times more likely to have problematic alcohol use, potentially due to their tendency to use alcohol as self-medication to get away from their stresses and fears. As well, 53% of students stated they had experienced at least one situation where they felt pressure from peers to consume more alcohol than they had wanted to. Peer pressure was also found to be a significant estimator of problematic alcohol use amongst university students, as students were 2 times more likely to have problematic alcohol use if they had close friends who were consumers of alcohol compared to their counterparts. The prevalence of binge drinking amongst university students is quite high and affects the vast majority of students. Studies have found that between 80 to 90% of university students had drank alcohol on at least one occasion in the past year. Out of 34,039 respondents from Canadian universities, it was found that 36% of students consumed 5 or greater drinks in a single outing at least once within the past 2 weeks, suggesting that a significant amount of students are engaging in high-risk excessive alcohol consumption.
So now we're going to discuss the negative impacts of excessive alcohol consumption, and we're going to start off with the physiological consequences. So first we'll start off with a brief overview, and then we'll delve into some of the short and long-term consequences of excessive alcohol consumption. So first, to give you a brief overview, starting with some statistics. So according to the Canadian Tobacco, Alcohol and Drug Survey conducted in 2015, 3.3 million Canadians' alcohol use put them at risk for short-term injury. So this includes women who consumed more than 3 drinks or men consuming more than 4 drinks in one go. The study also found that 4.3 million Canadians risked long-term health effects by consuming more than 10 drinks a week in the case of women, or more than 15 drinks a week for men. Now, a second study conducted in 2010, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, found that alcohol consumption was the 3rd highest risk factor for global disease burden, falling behind high blood pressure, which was number 1, and tobacco smoking, which was number 2. So as defined by the World Health Organization, global disease burden, GBD, is a metric that's used to analyze the risk factors resulting in loss of life around the world. So as seen through these 2 studies, alcohol clearly plays a major role in life and death, and it has severe negative physiological effects that cannot be taken lightly. And now to go over some of those negative effects. So listed here are some of the negative effects of excessive alcohol consumption, which can either be acute and short-term or chronic and long-term. So some of the short-term effects include alcohol poisoning, injury as a result of loss of motor control, as well as memory loss, so having no recollection of what occurred while under the influence of alcohol. And some of the long-term effects are neurodegeneration, particularly in parts of the brain that are responsible for learning and memory. And this neurodegeneration is especially important in adolescent alcohol consumption. There's also hypertension, liver cirrhosis, as well as various forms of cancer, of which cancers of the oral cavity are most prominent.
Negative impacts of alcohol on individuals goes beyond physical effects on the body. There are also sociological impacts. The first negative impact of alcohol abuse is poor academic performance. Alcohol negatively affects cognition and the student's ability to learn. This has a direct correlation to the student's declining academic performance, which can lead students towards dropping out of school. Another negative impact of alcohol abuse is unhealthy relationships. While drinking is very social, too much alcohol can make your social group smaller and less diverse because you are likely to hang out with people who drink just as much as you do. In addition, alcohol impacts romantic relationships because you are likely to drink more if your partner abuses alcohol. Finally, students with younger siblings are in danger of becoming poor role models by setting bad examples. The third negative impact of alcohol abuse is poor mental health. This is because alcohol abuse can lead to mental health issues like depression and anxiety. Another negative impact of alcohol abuse is drunk driving. Alcohol impairs your ability to make logical decisions and also hinders motor skills, which inevitably leads to car accidents. Furthermore, driving while under the influence is considered a federal criminal offense. Alcohol abuse can also cause violence and aggression. Heavy drinking is very closely related to violence between partners and violence towards others. Acts of aggression and violence can result in civil lawsuits as well as criminal charges. Another negative impact of alcohol abuse is sexual assault and the lack of protection. You are less likely to use protection under the influence of alcohol because it decreases judgment and excuses risky behavior. This can make you vulnerable to infections and STDs. Additionally, dangerous drinking patterns are closely related to rape and sexual abuse. Alcohol is considered a date rape drug because it can be used on victims to weaken them and to make them less aware of their surroundings. Furthermore, acts of sexual assault can result in federal criminal charges. The last negative impact of alcohol abuse is economic cost. Alcohol dependence is very costly, especially for students with loans, which inevitably leads to financial constraints in their budget. In conclusion, it's important to recognize how detrimental alcohol abuse really is for university students. Alcohol abuse not only negatively impacts the body physically, it changes social behavior, which is just as, if not more, damaging.
The drinking culture present at Western University is also present across other universities. However, Western is among the heaviest drinkers. According to a study conducted by Maclean's, Western ranks 9th out of all Canadian universities for party hours per week. In 2015, a Western University student died after being struck by a drunk driver who became intoxicated at Western's bar, The Spoke. Other tragedies stemming from drinking culture are seen in universities across Canada. In 2010, a student at Queen's University died after consuming alcohol and falling out of a residence window. In 2011, a student at Acadia University died from alcohol poisoning when participating in a drinking game. In 2012, a riot occurred at Fanshawe College, causing $500,000 in damages. Drinking culture and the resultant consequences are therefore seen throughout Canadian universities. According to the World Health Organization, 32% of university students reported hazardous and harmful patterns of drinking. This doubles the proportion of heavy drinkers in the London community and Greater Ontario region. This shows that drinking culture is most prominent in university students, and it is therefore localized to the university region. This localization is further asserted by the fact that students living on campus were between 1.5 to 2.1 times more likely to report episodic heavy drinking compared to students living with family. Furthermore, this drinking culture correlates to the younger population, as indicated by the proportion of youth that reported binge drinking in London, with the figure showing a steady decline as age increases. Drinking culture in university students varies from province to province, with students in Atlantic provinces having the highest rates of hazardous drinking, while Quebec had the lowest rates. Ontario lies in the middle, with 33.4% of students exhibiting hazardous drinking. Nationally, Canada reports a mediocre proportion of heavy drinkers compared to other countries. However, the effects of Canada's drinking culture are more severe than other countries. According to the World Health Organization, Canada has the greatest percentage of driving fatalities from alcohol of any developing country. Canada is also within the second highest category of disability-adjusted life year from alcohol effects in the world. Drinking culture in universities is therefore correlated with geography, as heavy drinking is more prominent in universities than in London or in Ontario. With age, as heavy drinking is more prominent in university students than it is in older people. And alcohol-related harm, which is visible through alcohol-related tragedies across universities and impacts seen nationally. It is very difficult to change the drinking culture present at universities, especially Western. This is apparent through Western's homecoming dilemma. Western administration attempted to thwart the annual heavy drinking associated with homecoming by placing the official date during an exam period. Students, however, created an unofficial fall homecoming and averted administration's attempt to dissolve the drinking culture. The drinking culture therefore cannot be stopped, but it is possible to reduce harm through education, changes to social stigma, and by changing policies. Through research, students have identified 4 different types of drinkers. The control drinker, which recognizes drinking as a social activity and does not drink to get drunk. The pleasure-seeking drinkers, which place fun as the most important elements of all social activity, with the majority of students in this category. Peer pressure drinkers, which want to feel like they are part of a group and build their confidence. And binge drinkers, which have one goal, to finish all of their alcohol, and this is the most harmful and hazardous category. This study outlines 3 dangerous categories of drinking. This categorization can help alleviate the problem of excessive drinking. By recognizing symptoms of each category, students can self-reflect and make changes or get help. For example, Category 2 drinkers can self-reflect on their idea of fun and make lifestyle changes after acknowledging the health impacts of too much alcohol. Similarly, Category 3 drinkers should self-reflect on whether the decision to drink is coerced and look towards other ways to feel confident. Binge drinkers first need to acknowledge that they have a problem, and then they need to ask for help.
Additionally, students need to feel like they can talk about the problems associated with drinking, whether it's at its worst or it's getting there. There is too much stigma surrounding individuals who are at the point where they are getting treated, such as Alcoholics Anonymous. Ironically, there is stigma associated with students who choose not to drink as well. Feeling trapped, students find themselves trying to find a balance between the two. While there are rules surrounding alcohol to preserve the safety of students, in reality they actually deter students from asking for help. For example, Western's Orientation Week is a big social event that is meant to be dry. However, that does not stop students from drinking whatsoever. Having policies that scare students from reaching out for help only makes matters worse. We need to take tips from Huron University College, who hasn't banned first years from drinking. They don't encourage it, but they allow students that are of age to do so in dorm rooms. It helps moderate drinking and makes students feel safe because they are not scared of getting caught or asking for help. If students find themselves feeling uncomfortable talking to someone about alcohol, yet continue to drink dangerously, the situation is a lot more hazardous. Therefore, we can apply a multi-model approach to try and alleviate excessive drinking on campus by educating, decreasing social stigma, and enacting more supportive and effective policies.